Tuesdays and Thursdays, when we talk about the burning economic issues, the good and not so good news here on the programming. We try to bring everything to your table and how it affects your life. So that's the reason for this commodities market update. Just a reminder there. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Let's bring Ada Economy, an economist and one of the research analysts at Financial Derivatives, to look into this for us. We have quite a bit to chew over the next couple of minutes. Good morning.
Good morning, President.
There's a long list of what is good and what is not so good. So let's just use that as introductory, what is good. I'm trying to look at what is good and what is not so good. Looks like a very mixed bag. It's very difficult for me to take a decision.
Well, so start from the good news. The good news, it's always good to start from the good news anyway. Oil prices are still at $63, $64 per barrel ahead of the OPEC meeting coming up on Thursday. We see Ivory Coast cocoa production is going. Ivory Coast expects a bumper harvest due to favorable weather condition. Tiger Brands reported a 1.6% increase in its EPS. And so those are...
Is that after the Dangote's divestment?
Exactly, after the Dangote divestment. And those are the... good news for now, but then the bad news is that there are about 500 tax defaulters, Nigerian tax defaulters, in the VADES run, and the Nigeria
those look at big guys.
Yes, and the Nigeria debt service burden is about 3.4 trillion. So that's the good and bad news. Yeah,
the debt service burden is not good news. That's a very serious bad news. 66% of our revenue.
Yes.
So as much more as money as we get from tax revenue or whatever, we keep dumping it into debt service.
Yes.
That's a conversation for another day. I think I'm going to ask Gami Noyane when she comes in here how to get out of this trap. It looks like this is what it looks like, a vicious cycle. Here, you make money here, you put it in here, you put it in here, you borrow here, you put it here, and it keeps going around in circles. I'm trying to see if she has some answers on how to get out of it. So let's talk about, and I'm sure you find a few minutes to look at what the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, says yesterday. He discussed very extensively on agriculture, agribusiness, the agri-value chain. She spoke about almost everything we spoke about every day and what we consume, from rice to chicken, or poultry to be more, because that may include those who want turkey and a few other things. Not my favorite anyway. I like chicken. What do you like?
Both.
Both?
Yes.
Okay. So next time we're having lunch also, I have an idea what we'll put on the menu. Then we got tomato, which is very part in it. Then we have sugar.
Yes.
Let's start with sugar, really. Where is the focus with sugar? I'm aware the Nigerian government has this National Sugar Development Plan. We're trying to ramp up on production locally and spend less on sugar imports with Dangote, flour mills, and I think a few others.
Yes. Well, if you look at the report by the EIU, sugar prices year to date has come down about 30%. So beginning of the year, we had high prices due to the concerns of a deficit, but now that's waning because we're seeing improved production from the top producers such as Brazil and India. So now sugar prices are at a favorable level. But then if we look at the price of 50 kg bag of sugar in Nigeria, that's not really reflective of what is going on in the international market, because the sugar market in Nigeria is basically it's an oligopoly. So there are three major players. Dangote captures most of the market share, then flour mills and BOA. So those are the three major players. So there's not room for enough competition. So they somewhat determine the price movement of this commodity.
Why are they the only guys on the ground? It takes a lot of money to produce, isn't it?
It does take
hectares.
You do need to plant massive fields of sugarcane, which is then converted to refined sugar, which is good for consumption. However, it's a rigorous process. So it seems like what most of these big players are doing, they import kind of brown sugar, then that is somewhat processed to refined sugar. But that's a part of the Dangote's long-term strategy, and the big players in the sugar industry. They're trying to expand cultivation. They're trying to invest in the sugar refinery so that we tend to fill in the demand gap. But then the demand-supply gap is wide. So we produce about 70,000 tons, and our demand is approximately 1.2 million tons. So that's why.
So even these three producers, Dangote, the Golden Sugar, which is flour mills, and the BOA, the three wise companies, let me put it that way, won't even be able to meet the demand of 180 million people, considering the fact that the majority of this population are young people who want the chocolate, want the sugar in their tea, they want this and that. I'm getting to the age of honey, have graduated from sugar to honey. And that's what age does to you.
Well, you raised the fair point, actually. So even in the global market, everyone is now being extremely health conscious. So they are moving away from sugar consumption to alternative sources. So because there's this awareness of obesity and health conscious reasons. So that's...
We still consume cakes, isn't it? We do a lot of events here that has cakes.
Yeah, but then the sugar input in that will somewhat reduce as opposed to... So that's the fear for the sugar market.
I haven't had a cake in any time. But I'm going to try and find out if the sugar content is lower. Like you said, the doctor is... let's have an appointment there. But let's get back to the vice president on agri policies, and he talks about poultry, tomato, and rice. Let's start with rice, which is always our discussion here when it comes to whether we're going to have 9,000 or 6,000 in a bag of rice by the end of the summer. So the vice president says our neighbors, he didn't mention the countries in West Africa, but we know where they are to the west.
Yes.
Some parts of the country where the vice president says they have 3 vessels, shipload of rice coming in this December, and the target is to bring them into Nigeria as a consuming market. That's very, well, the vice president says that is not economically acceptable.
Well, the president has said on numerous occasions that there's zero tolerance for smuggling at this point. So it seems like they're ramping up efforts to block all the loopholes and the leakages, because it's costing the economy a lot, lots of losses. And rice, example, it's a major staple food in Nigeria. So we have the big players in the north trying to produce as much rice. So we've seen improvements in paddy rice. There's been truckloads coming in, and how much they used to buy paddy rice a couple years ago is lower now. So now you have those guys working so hard, but then there's no market for that, because these guys most of the consumers are moving towards the rice that they are known due to the smuggling, the smuggling activity. So they have to cut that link and somewhat create a market for the local production that we have in here. And apparently it's quite good. So they've improved the seedlings, and there's been improved machineries to make sure the turnover and the capacities it's improved. So we have to look inwards and consume what we produce.